Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jennifer and tonight we're going to talk about future faking. So if you would like, you can like, share, and subscribe, and that will help my channel thrive, and I would really appreciate it. I am here because I give narcissistic abuse awareness, and I'm here to support people who are going through toxic relationships and need some support, and I'm also here to help people who are supporting them, and that's why we bring awareness. And so tonight I want to talk a little bit about future faking. I did mention it in my last video, and I wanted to bring it up and really talk about it a little bit more because it is something that you will go through if you're in a toxic relationship with anyone, be it at work, friendship, romantic relationship, whatever that relationship is. You could and probably will, especially if you're in a romantic relationship or friendship even, go through future faking. Actually, I guess it could just be anything. It could be even in your family. And so I do tend to like to give examples, and sometimes I use examples from my own life because it's easier for me. Not always easier, but because I always feel like somebody might hear it and think it's about them, or it might be a story that's happened with them or something, and then who knows what brings that. But not everybody is a narcissist, and so I am not here to diagnose anyone. However, we all have traits, and so in relationships, some of these things might happen with any of them. And future faking, I cannot stand. And because it is such a waste of time for people, and it is manipulative, and I believe that we've all done it to some level. Like sometimes you might say something like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna come and see you next week, like a family member or something, and you genuinely really do mean that you're going to, but then things kind of happened and you didn't go. But I would assume that you would be having conversations with those people and that they weren't just expecting you and you didn't show up. Because people who future fake and they just don't show up or something like that, you're not regarding someone else's time as important. You are basically saying to that person, my time is more important than your time, and deal with it. So actually, I really don't think that they're even thinking about that. I think that people who are doing that are just thinking about themselves in the moment, and they're not considering someone else's feelings and what may have gone on to make those plans, or to maybe they're still waiting and looking for that person to come or show up, or whatever the case may be. It could be, I remember someone was contacting me and they were wanting me to mark time off of my book to plan something. And they kept calling. There was like 2 or 3 times that it happened. And they were like, oh yeah, they're telling me that they're calling me, so I'll make these plans. And I was like, well, I have to know ahead of time so I can mark my book because of the because of the type of job that I have, to be off. And so I would mark my book and then nothing would happen. And it's like, okay. So, and because I didn't want to stir anything, and I thought, well, maybe, I tried to make excuses because that's what I do for people. I give them excuses. And then it happened again. And then it happened almost again. And this time I didn't mark my book. I was like, I'm not marking my book. I'm not doing that, because I don't know if it's actually going to happen. And so why mark my book if every time this person has shown me that they're just calling me, saying these things, but then not following through, and then I'm losing income over it. So I just didn't mark my book for the third thing. And, it might have seemed like I was being insensitive and didn't, make plans to go and do this thing. But I didn't know if it was actually going to happen anyway, if it was all fluff and just being talked about, because I felt like that's what that person does. I don't know that they necessarily recognize that that's what they do or were doing with me, because whenever they would do that with me, they would make it sound like it was for someone else. And so, I obviously cared about that person and would try to do something, but then talk about something else. So I started to wonder, what was that about? Was it about just talking to me about the one thing, or was it really about making those plans? And I felt really bad that I was having those thoughts, but it kept repeating itself. And so when you are going through relationships with people, you look for patterns. And if someone is repeating these patterns that are uncomfortable for you, and it makes you feel like they don't care about your time or your feelings, that's something to take a look at. If it happens one time, you know what? Things happen. Things come up. Things happen. If it's continuing to happen, it's something to look at. So it was something that I looked at, and by the third time, I think it was the third, maybe even the fourth time, but I was like, I am not marking my book, because even though when I marked my book before and I was off, I was like, well, I'll just take that time to, do something with my family or friends or whatever. Or do something to self-care for myself. And I used the time, but it was just kind of annoying that, I had done that and this person wasn't keeping up with me. And I had even reached back out, and then they weren't reaching out. And then I was like, okay, why aren't they responding to me? And then I'm like, but I'm afraid to open my book back up to make appointments, because what if then they call me last minute? Because what I found was, this particular person is fly by the seat of their pants. I have to plan more, and they're just a different person. They're fly by the seat of their pants. And I think they do maybe get excited, and then they make these things and they start talking, but it doesn't really follow through. And it's because they're not the one really planning it and marking it. But, when I'm doing that, I'm expecting you to follow through on what you said you were going to do. And so, that can be annoying, because you are sitting back waiting on somebody to do what they said they're going to do. And after a while of that, it's probably time to pull back and take a look at the relationship, or maybe create some boundaries around that, because it's not okay for people to do that, and it becomes a toxic relationship. And if you can't speak your mind, or you can't create a boundary without them taking offense to it, then that's their problem, not yours, because you need to take care of yourself too. And if someone is doing certain things like that to you, and they can't acknowledge that they did those things, and they may not have thought about your feelings or thought about your time, there's a bigger problem there. And you may want to take a look at that relationship and figure out what you want to do with that. So future faking can really hurt someone emotionally, financially. There's a lot of things that can happen with that future faking. I know one time I've been future faked a million times. I mean, we've all either done it or had it done to us, but when it's a pattern, it's terrible. I remember one time someone that I was in a relationship future faked me, and they knew I never asked for anything really. And so they just all of a sudden offered to take me. I might have said this here before on I think I did on a podcast that I did, but they were like, I want to take you to a really nice restaurant, and it was really expensive. And then I kind of felt guilty, because I guess I deep down didn't think I deserved it. I don't know why, but I was like, you don't have to take me to that nice restaurant or whatever. But really, I don't know why I said that. It's like, no, you deserve it. And I had done a whole lot for this person. So they were trying to do something, saying they were doing something back for me. And I literally it was so nice. And I thought, oh, wow. And I was so excited about it. And then the day came, and they kept mentioning how they were excited about doing that for me. And, so it was going to be like a couple of weeks or whatever. And then the day came, and they started a fight with me and did not follow through. and went and did something else. And I was crushed because I had looked so forward to it, and it made me feel appreciated for, things that I had done, and I felt like they cared about me as well. And then when they did that, it made me feel even less cared about, because had they never even offered it to me, I probably wouldn't have even thought about it, to be honest with you. And so they did, and made such a big deal about it, and it just made it 1,000 times worse. And when I did speak up and I mentioned it, and they basically were like, blamed me, and did word salad, which is basically circular conversations that are just there to deflect and make you question other things and go on to another topic instead of the topic that you're on, because they don't want to be accountable. And they didn't like that I was trying to make them accountable, and they didn't care. They did not care about my feelings. They only cared about theirs, so they kept making excuses. And it's like the excuses just make you feel worse. So when you're in a toxic relationship with someone like that, whether they be narcissistic, or antisocial personality disorder, whatever, if they're displaying that and they don't care about your feelings and they can't put themselves in your shoes, they don't have any empathy, basically they're going to turn it around on you like, you're just too sensitive, or you're always complaining, or I never do anything right. They're going to find some way to make you defensive. And here you're already just trying to say, look, this really hurt my feelings. And they're looking at it like all you care about is you. You don't care about them. They will totally turn it and make you second guess yourself. They'll bring up something from 5 years ago to make you think about that. Remember when you did this, and you'll stop and start thinking about that instead of what's actually happening or just happened. And so future faking is something that is manipulative. It's very hurtful, and it is something that you need to look at and see if you are seeing a pattern of it. And mixed with that and a lot of other things that we're going to talk about, you may be with a narcissistic personality disordered person, or someone that has that amongst other disorders. But there's a lot that goes along with being diagnosed with that. However, being aware of those traits, if your alarm system in your body is saying, I'm not being treated right, then your feelings are valid. You don't need to go to someone else and ask them, hey, look, should I be feeling this way? You are feeling that way, and you should feel safe to go to someone that you care about and be able to talk about your feelings. And they should be able to sit and listen to that and have some understanding of why you may have felt that way. They may have meant something different, but you should be able to have a conversation with someone and be able to even create a boundary, so that it doesn't happen again for you in that relationship. And if it's a relationship where someone values that friendship or whatever that relationship is, then they're going to want to do whatever it takes to make it work with you. And they're not going to make you feel more bad about yourself by blaming you and doing all of that. Pointing fingers and blaming people, I don't care which side you're on, doesn't really help. You can actually go and talk to people without going, you're a terrible person, and yelling and fighting. You can talk about your feelings, and this is how it made me feel, and work with someone like that, and I think you're going to get somewhere better. Now, if that person doesn't care and you're really trying you're just trying to get some resolve and figure out how to make the relationship be successful and not have any animosity and resentments between each other. If they don't care, you may want to pull back from that relationship and figure out what's best for you and what's going to be healthy for you, because it takes two people to be in a relationship, and two people could have different expectations, different perceptions, and so talking about it can help a lot. If you continue to see patterns and they're unhealthy for you and you feel like they're unhealthy, you may want to pull back in that relationship and surround yourself with people who do care about you and care about your time and care about your efforts, and pay attention, because sometimes people, they'll do these things and they don't recognize that they keep doing it, and they're focusing more on what you're not, or what they're not getting. However, they're a part of that. That's toxic. So that is what we're going to talk about today, or I'm done talking about it for now, and we will talk again. We will talk about a lot of other things. I might talk about projection next. So until next time, this is Jennifer. I do care about you. You are not alone, and you're going to be okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter which side you're on. If you are someone who thinks you may be exhibiting some of these behaviors and hurting someone, you can go and get some therapy. And if you're someone who's been going through it and questioning yourself and questioning your judgment and feeling bad about it and feeling like you might be being emotionally abused, you know, you can go and talk to someone, a therapist, about it, and they can help you get through it as well. In the meantime, I'm here for you, and I hope my channel helps you out in some ways. I'm just coming to you in a way where I've been through it, and I do understand. You're not crazy. Your feelings are valid. You don't need me to tell you that. You can validate your feelings. They're real. Until next time, bye.